Goody 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 everyone, this is Dayhawk and this video is all about my overall thoughts and opinions concerning Kamen Rider Revice as a whole. I'll be talking about the characters. I'll be talking about my least favorite to my favorite episodes, to maybe, just maybe, mention the suits a little bit, and towards the end, my overall feelings about the show, and that will be it. I'm not completely sure if it's gonna be in one video. I may split it into two. I'm not completely sure, but whatever happens, happens, right? And to that end, Kamen Rider Revice has been pretty good. It has its flaws, of course, and I will mention those flaws during this video. And yeah, I think that's it. So let's start with the heroes, shall we? Ikki has grown a lot. He has been through so much. Not as much as Daiji, but enough where he is a hero in his own right. In the beginning, we see him, helping his parents out with the spa. And I remember Papa-san was telling his son, like, why not just go and pursue your dream of becoming a soccer player? And he's like, no, I'd rather just work here and just help you guys out, But we all knew, and as the season went on, we discovered the real reason why he doesn't want to pursue soccer. And that was, he injured one of his friends, and due to that injury, he can never play soccer again. And his friend tells Ikki that, I can no longer play soccer, and I know you want to pursue soccer and want to go pro, achieve your dream and achieve mine. And Ikki just, couldn't handle the promise that he made. And that's where, the pressure came in. And at that point where he just gave up, he's so positive, but yet he had these feelings of, doubt. He was unhappy and just lost the will to live. And up until he became a writer, I believe becoming a writer and just overall helping people, saving people, fill in that hole in his heart. And of course he has, his flaws, like his being nosy, the lack of empathy, which the crazy lawyer pointed out. And I think that's one of the reasons why Ikki really wasn't that great of a character, because for me, I just didn't like him in the beginning because of it. And when the lawyer said what needed to be said, his lack of empathy, his ego, like, I was like, thank you. But he openly admits that, yes, it's to feed my own ego, but he has his reasons why, because he just figured, well, helping people is helping myself, because I have problems of my own. And then, the issues with Daiji and Kagero, and then leading towards, the whole gift stuff. And when he discovered about the contract, the deal that he made with Revice, because if you remember, Ikki, as a child, made a deal with Vice in terms of, I want to help my family out. And, it was due to Vale and Genta in the whole fire situation. He doesn't want to see his own family put in that position again, so he made a deal. And Vice pretty much blocked that memory from him until later on when Ikki discovers, he remembers what happened in the fire and the deal, and that's where I think either Vice himself, showed, pictures of his family without his image in there. And Ikki realized, oh, so every time I transform, a piece of myself, in a picture will be gone. My memories of my family will be gone. And we start to see that, memory loss during the season. He was starting to lose, hey, what's the spa? What else? What time does this, like, basic stuff, up until the end where his parents returned from groceries and Ikki was telling them, oh, is it alright for you to wait it out because the spa isn't open yet? And everybody in that room was like shocked. Like, what are you talking about? They are our parents. And Ikki turns to Daiji and Sakura. I'm like, what? Yeah, things are starting to get very serious at that point. And then after defeating Gift, I think Ikki told his whole family, well, Sakura and Daiji, the truth about what's going on. And of course, before that, Ikki's parents knew. And you gotta love Daiji and Sakura. They were trying to like tell Ikki, don't transform, because let us handle the problem. And that time was George was also had his issues after his father's passing. And Ikki knew that if he transforms to help George, his memories of his siblings will be gone as well. But that goes to show how much of a hero Ikki is. He made the self-sacrifice to help a friend in need. And George was saved, but in the process, he lost what remains of his memories towards his family. And when he got his memories back, Vice was already gone. His adventures of him being Kamen Rider Revi was gone. However, Vice gave Ikki like the ultimate gift, in my opinion. That is a second chance. A second chance at a normal life. And because of that, Ikki became more positive. He returned to play soccer again. He got a chance to see his idol, who at the end of the episode, the last episode, was encouraging him to push forward, go pursue soccer as a pro. And you see mannerisms only Vice could do, and just he's happy, he's at peace. And yeah, of course, the rest of the family knows the story of him and Vice, and if they had the opportunity to tell that story to Ikki, they will. Of course, Ikki's not going to believe it, but eventually he will get his memories back, and Vice in some shape or form will return. because we all know that Vice is quote unquote Ikki's dark half. So at the end, I enjoyed Ikki. He had a lot of growth. And do I see him in my all-star team? If I were to build a team, do I see myself picking Ikki? I mean, sure, why not? It's going to be a hard choice because there's many others. However, I do see Ikki in my lineup, So Ikki was pretty good. The actor who played him was pretty good. And let's see how his career is going to progress after Revice. And I'm guessing that that's his first acting gig. So usually when you see actors, it's usually their first gig in either Sentai and Kamen Rider. And oftentimes you get actors who have done shows before, but the majority of the time it's their first acting gig. So I wish him the best. Let's see now. Let's move on to Vice. Vice was my least favorite character. He was acting Deadpoolish. He was breaking the fourth wall. In the beginning, he was mostly selfish. He wanted to eat people. He didn't want to listen to Ikki all that much. Up until Ikki forced Vice to, please cooperate with me, because I don't want you running around amok, eating people, causing chaos. Because I remember in the earlier episodes, Ikki threw himself in this line of danger where this demon was beating, I think either it was a dead man, a foot soldier, or a upper level demon. He was getting beat up, and he was trying to force Vice's hand, like, I'm gonna die here. If you're not gonna cooperate with me, I'm gonna let this demon beat me up until you submit. And eventually Vice broke, because he knew that if Ikki dies, then he dies along with him. So he had no choice but to submit. And during their time being Kamen Rider Revice, they had their mishaps, their silly arguments, them transforming into these creatures with the poor CGI. And then it got to the point where Vice was starting to be all overprotected towards Ikki, because it was due to George. Because if you remember back then, George was a little bit of a slime ball, and he has done a lot of shady things up until Vice was like, you know what, he's treating us as guinea pigs. I mean, we deserve some measure of respect here. And he doesn't like George, the way that he's treating Vice and Ikki especially. And that's where we got the scene where Ikki was telling Vice, and pretty much anybody that was like, I don't trust George and everything. I was included in that, because even I, during my earlier reviews, I can't trust George. I have a love-hate relationship towards him. And the reason I don't really like him at the time was, look at his attitude, and look what he was doing with Hiromi and the whole Kagero situation. Like, what the hell? And that's when Ikki just told Vice, look, you don't have to trust him. Put your trust in me. That's all I'm asking. And Vice was, alright, I put my faith in you. And there were times where Vice was doubting himself, like he doesn't know if if he fits in with his group, to him like, I'm not really a true demon. And Ikki was there to remind him that we're in this together. We're more than just partners, we're family. And it was stamped in episode 49, where they were living together. And Vice was, asking Ikki at the time, am I still your partner? And Ikki was like, I see you more than that. I see you more as family. You're part of my family. And I'm sure Vice was, having a lot of raw emotions inside of him. And towards the tail end of the season, you see him more reliable, and he cares about Ikki and his family and his friends. And it got to the point to the very end where he sees Ikki not remembering his home family. Ikki made the choice to move out and to live on his own. And it came to the point where Vice made the ultimate decision, where he knows that he wants Ikki to come back. He wants his memories returned, but he knows about the price, because within the contract it says that once Ikki's memories concerning his family are gone, the contract has been fulfilled. But for whatever reason, the contract is still ongoing. We didn't know why until George figured out that the reason why the contract is still ongoing is because Ikki, views Vice as his family. And if Vice goes, then the contract will be fulfilled and his memories will return. So Vice knew that the only way for Ikki's memories to return was to sacrifice himself. And he went to the spa and tells everybody, except for Hikaru, which I will have my rant once I hit Hikaru, because I have lots to say. Vice told everybody that I'm gonna fight Ikki and force him to transform one last time. And he's gonna defeat me. Once he defeats me, I disappear. And his memories with me will die along with me. His memories of being a writer also fades away. However, the memories of his family will come back. The contract will already be fulfilled. He knew that he will no longer walk on this earth, but he did it because he loved Ikki so much. And Ikki knew during this whole charade what Vice was trying to do. Of course, it was a little help with Lovey with the exposed tail, and he knew that the jig was up. But Ikki, without a second thought, just said, "You know what? I'm gonna fight you, and see where this goes." And then you have this intimate moment between the two. You see Ikki crying, saying that I'm not gonna leave you. I will always remember you, and Vice saying thank you, and he disappears. And Vice, he changed a lot as well. There's a lot of character growth. I, I consider Vice the least favorite, but at least he has changed for the better, and we do see a piece of Vice mannerisms in Ikki towards the very end, and of course, he will come back in a movie, I guess, and yeah, I mean, Vice, with all his flaws, I mean, he changed, and it was due to Ikki just being there, being his partner in crime, and just keeping himself in check. He no longer eats people, even though he kind of jokes around about that. um, you see Vice, in silly situations like him dressing up as a geisha at the spa. I remember he also went in disguise and he was like spying on Mama-san because Vale was hunting for Genta, and he's gonna hurt anybody that's related to Genta. So Vice volunteered in following Mama-san around, and he was in disguise. That was hilarious. Of there was moments where Vice was in that horrible recap episode. He submitted like copyright stuff, and he just got chained up next to Ikki. Vice getting not necessarily beaten up by George, but there was moments where like George was getting him the knuckle sandwiches and all that. And I cannot forget this too, when he used his V stamp and just stamps on the bike to possess the bike. And the craziest scene was when he transferred his soul to the rubber ducky and gave Papa-san the most embarrassing defeat ever, even though it was all staged. But it was like one of the most funniest defeats in Kamen Rider history, in my opinion. Just seeing Vice, possessing a rubber ducky. I mean, I admit that was pretty funny. And there was moments where Vice was really vulnerable, especially especially the whole issue with Vale, of just Vale just downgrading him, that you look like a demon but you don't act like one, and which made him doubt himself. But Ikki was always there to pick him up, the same way Vice does with Ikki. So they had an equal partnership, and they're like Thelma and Louise, the male version. But yeah, both Ikki and Vice had a lot of growth, and again, with Kamen Rider, sometimes some characters remain the same since episode 1, which kind of sucks. But in this case, they've grown a lot in their heroes because they made a lot of tough choices. They could have been cowards, they could have been selfish, but they did the right thing. And they always lend a helping hand. And towards the very end, you get to see all these people who they helped along the way. They just to return the favor, because the Igarashi family had helped with the people who Ikki saved to make this stage show to convince Ikki that Vice turned bad and all that, just to test this theory of, could defeating Vice help regain his memories. The only thing also that I had an issue is that I don't understand why creative didn't push the envelope further and just have Ikki forget everybody, including his own name. But I think they figured it will be way too much, especially when you only have one episode left. If they had maybe 1 or 2 episodes left, just to push that envelope to see him, forget everybody and everything he loved, and just go crazy and have his family and friends try to hunt him down and see if they can help. That maybe would have been too much, but I would have preferred that way, just to see how they handle this situation, and I'm sure George would have felt even more guilty to see Ikki go through the path of madness because he himself forced his hand to transform, not knowing that the consequences would be him losing the rest of his memories. That would have been a great storyline, but it was so short because due to being close to the finale, and there's no way they could squeeze everything, especially under 30 minutes. So yeah, other than that, I think that's it for Vice. Then we have Daiji. Daiji, in my opinion, had the most rockiest of rides, and he'd been through so much. And it all got started the moment he had the V-stamp and the driver in his hands. However, he couldn't transform because he was a nervous wreck. He pretty much had a meltdown, and he didn't know what to do. And then, if you remember as well, the dead man's crashed the party. Hiromi unleashed his demon, and the demon attacked Mama-san. And again, Daiji tried again, but he froze again, and Ikki went in, and the rest is history. And since then, he had to deal with him believing that Ikki is the center of attention. He's in his shadow. Daiji is in Ikki's shadow. He is the star. He's the sidekick, which led him towards the birth of Kagero, and then Kagero took control for a brief moment in time, and due to Ikki's help, he broke free, he regained control, he became Kamen Rider Live. And then, as he was struggling with Kagero, he lost Hiromi, and then the whole duel between him and Kagero, and then him hearing the rumors that Phoenix is corrupt, and and that added stress went inside Daiji, wanting to delete the rot that is in Phoenix, make Phoenix great again. And that was the beginning of Daiji being Daiji Skywalker, him being out of balance, and him thinking that he was in the right, everybody is wrong. And then the reveal that Akashi was behind the whole situation, and during those times, Daiji was all like, we need to get rid of him now. And due to his recklessness, he caused his team and himself a lot of major defeats. More specifically, the main defeat was during the conference call at the pier, where Akashi announced to the world about GIF and him being the one that may destroy humanity if we don't obey him, that sort of thing, and him playing dead, and that went down the toilet. And Daiji, joining Akashi and doing all these stupid things out of pursuit of justice and preserving the peace. And then Hiromi's return didn't really help at all. And then Papa-san, after dealing with Veil, that didn't work out. And yeah, during the Akashi GIF Wars, he was Daiji Skywalker. Yeah, he was Daiji Skywalker because he was acting like Anakin Skywalker during, the time after the Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith, all that stuff. And you see him, leading the dead man on one of those weekend shelters, and the infamous rock hit, and he went all crazy. He was so angry at these people who he claimed to love, doesn't understand why he's doing this. And remember, he pointed a gun to his brother and sister. And yeah, he's been through the ringer. And then after killing Akashi, he was close to making a deal with GIF. That didn't work out. And then you have Hiromi stepping in once again to help Daiji, just to help him, because at that point Daiji was that I did a lot of terrible, horrible things. It's too late to turn back now, and Hiromi just steps in and like, it's okay, you did bad things. The right thing for you to do is to learn from them and move forward. Your family is waiting for you. And of course, with the whole Kagero thing, even though in my opinion it wasn't even his fault to begin with, and and then with Kagero's return, him revealing that he wasn't dead, he was just absorbed, and he was waiting for the right time to reveal himself. And they reestablished their relationship. He became whole again. He had a new form. And then he was dealing with George and dealing with Ikki's memories, which led up to the end of the season where he is the head of the Bluebird. And the Bluebird is an organization from the remnants of Phoenix. So his organization is going to help out, what remained of the GIF war, the damages, and to help people who were affected by GIF and all that. Yeah, I mean, he's been through a lot. And he had to swallow a lot of things. And Kagero, in a way, pretty much revealed everything that Daiji was feeling. Like, after, getting shunned by his commander, after being the sidekick, being just witnessing Ikki doing all these extraordinary things as a Kamen rider, thinking that it was meant, like it should have been me, it should have been mine, and just the fact that he had hatred towards Ikki because he has taken everything from him, and just it's just sad. But Ikki just, when he was trying to reach out to Daiji, he was like, you're wrong. I've never wanted to be the center of attention. I never wanted to take your place or take the driver. He did it because It was in the moment. And he did it to save his mom. What choice did he really have? And he could have just ran. He could have just not do anything. What choice did Ikki had, And of course, Daiji later on knows this and start to prepare the relationship. But again, with Hiromi going off the cliff, presumed dead, the rumors of Phoenix being corrupted, dealing with, Kagero's supposed death, even though, like I said, it's never been his fault. I felt like Kagero forced his hand, and also with George, with him saying that he cannot use this power up because it needs something. It needs either the essence of Kagero or Daiji's essence. So either way, one of them has to go. So Daiji, his hand was forced. And then what makes matters even worse is, again, with the corruption, him having all that added stress because there's no one left to lead Phoenix. Akashi was the true leader, but he felt that, at least Daiji felt that he was the only one to lead Phoenix, but he can't do that while there's corruption in Phoenix, so he added stress within himself to deal with the problem, and also, whether he realized it or not, he became out of balance without Kagero because Kagero was his dark half. His light side is out of control at that point. And, his way of thinking is everything that I'm doing is for the right reasons. Everything is to preserve the peace. Everything is for my family. Everything is to preserve the human race. And, yeah, and just the whole, him being reckless, him unleashing demons here and there, fighting his siblings because he thought that Ikki and Sakura were the enemy, not seeing what he's seeing, and he wants to make them understand. And it's just, it was a mess, a huge mess. But when he accepted Kagero, and when he accepted, yes, I made mistakes, and he's going to make more of them in his later life, but as long as he learns from them and move forward, he will do well. It's never too late. That's the thing. That's the key here. It's never too late to make the right thing, to make the right choices, and I think that's what Daiji's character is meant to be as for everybody watching the show, is don't be afraid of making mistakes. It's never too late to have some sort of redemption and make things better. Accept your mistakes and move forward. And that's how you live life. That's the way I see Daiji, And don't be afraid of making mistakes. I think that's another lesson too. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because eventually you're going to make mistakes here and there, and you're going to be ruled by fear because you're afraid to make the same mistake. Just learn from it and move on, and that's what Daiji is. He's grown a lot, and I am very impressed by the actor who played both Kagero and Daiji. He's really good. And the stars is the limit, is the sky's the limit. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, moving on to Kagero, the only thing I wish for is that I wish that Kagero had the right amount of episodes, because he would have been a great threat towards Ikki. I wanted Kagero to force Ikki's hand into killing him, at least trying to kill him. because he might think that he tried to reach out for Daiji, but Kagero said no, he's gone. He's nowhere to be seen. I'm in control now. If you want to stop me, you need to kill me. And of course, Ikki is not going to do it, to the point where Kagero forces his hand and be like, okay, I have no choice in the matter, you know. But just when you thought that Ikki was going to kill him, Ikki tries to reach out to Daiji one last time to please, you know, and you see tears crying and tears flying, and just like, please don't make me do this, just help me, please. You know. And then Daiji will fight back and become the new Kamen Rider, and that's the end, you know. Had that moment there. And Kagero was a fun character. He's a popular character for a reason. He loves spicy curry. What else? Let's see. He at the time viewed Daiji as an idiot, a weakling, but now that he is gotten better, I guess. I mean, now he has more respect towards Daiji, and they have an equal partnership now. Now he's helping Daiji with his new project, the Bluebird. And according to him, he helped with the designs for it. Even though he wanted to be called the Blackbird instead of the Bluebird, but Daiji's like, no, it sounds too depressing. There isn't much to say other than that. I mean, like I said earlier, like, I wish he had more, and as a villain and also as an anti-hero, and leading towards his redemption. And Kagero, I assume, accepts that, you know, Daiji is also a part of him, as well as Daiji is a part of him, so they accepted each other, and pops out when he needs to. He tends to bluff, and he tends to like throw a little bit digs here and there, not like he was in the past, but you know, he was accepted by everybody in the family. And again, with the whole him coming back, I just personally didn't like the writing, the whole setup. I would have preferred a different way, in my opinion. And I just didn't like how he was used for a power-up. That always irritates the hell out of me. I did enjoy the fight he had with Hiromi and Daiji at that warehouse. I enjoyed that. Other than that, there's nothing good or bad to say about Kagero. Just, I wish he had more time and just the right amount of episodes to really push Ikki's buttons, and to have more moments like him popping up and just, hey, you know, you cannot kill this girl because she is the only one that can make my spicy curry. And, you know, just really have more of an appearance towards the end, even though he tends to switch from Daiji to Kagero every now and again, but not so much, which kind of sucks. But then again, it was towards the ending, so, you know, it is what it is, right? Then you have Sakura. In the beginning, she was having a normal life. Then her brothers transformed into riders, and she felt left out, and she wanted to help out. And also, you had to deal with Angelia, later Hana. For some reason, she was obsessed with her and asking her to join the Dead Man cult. Of course, she said no. And the moment she received her driver and V stamp, that everything changed the moment she received those. And then the whole thing with the weekend. And Sakura has one of the best lines. Like when Weekend Papa um, um, introduced themselves to her as the weekend, Sakura was like, "Wait, today's Wednesday," and he said, "No, that's the name of our group." And then Sakura was like, I think she was fighting Angelia again, and she even said like, "Why is so many groups want me to join them?" Oh man, that was funny. Um, Sakura, she was very popular because two groups wanted to like have dibs, but ultimately she went to the weekend, and when she was sworn to secrecy about the weekend and then later joining, it would have been more family drama if Ikki and Daiji were really upset with her as to why didn't you tell us about the weekend, since at the time they didn't know who the weekend were, and and they would have friction within the siblings, but it didn't happen that way. Sakura just kept it secret. She transformed into Kamen Rider John. Um, and then even before, Mama-san was like reluctant to have her fight demons. And also, of course, she was reluctant to have Ikki and Daiji be on harm's way up until in in the earlier episodes where Mama-san witnessed her kids fighting demons right before her eyes, and afterwards it convinced her like, all right, fine, I'll let you fight demons, you know. um and then after the Dead Man cult, ended, Angelia and Julio Takumi were just lost lamps. More specifically, Angelia, because she right now was looking for GIF. Oroteka had his ambitions, and she didn't know what to do. And I think at times she was looking for Sakura and have her fight her, and it's just to end her life. But Sakura said, "No, I'm not gonna give you what you want. I'm gonna save you," which she had. And because of that, Hana first it was Takumi and then it was Hana, they have new lives again, even though they were still like they were they were haunted by their past, and they want to atone for what they have done. And Sakura, having a good heart, she had Takumi stay at the spa, and then later on, when she released Hana from her demon contract, instead of staying at the spa, she took her to the weekend instead. And it goes to show that Sakura has a big heart, and she just wants to help people as well. And there was moments where she was fighting Lovekov, as to with the whole cut situation, which it wasn't a cut. It was more like she is growing. She was just shedding her skin, and she had a new form. And there was moments where you see Sakura be vulnerable, and it was when Daiji and Ikki were fighting, and it's just she was a wreck. She was a wreck, and it just goes to show how much she loves her family and wants them to be together and not fighting on opposite sides. And I remember, I think she stood up against Vale when he possessed Papa-san and the original Kamen Rider Vale, and was about to finish off Ikki, but she went like in front of them, in between them, saying, Papa, I'm your daughter. Can you snap out of it? I remember that. Um, Anything else that I remember? I think that's all I can remember, because towards the end, she wants to go to medical school, and Lovey is still there, and that's just a side note, but she wants to go to medical school, have a normal life. I'm not sure if she is still doing karate. I'm sure she does. But yeah, I mean, that's all I can remember about Sakura. I mean, she was an okay character, and she has a big heart. And she will go out of her way to help people just like Ikki. I think that's it. That's all I can remember. Because mind you, it's been a whole year, so nothing much has changed. And then we move on to Lovekov. What can you say about her? Nothing really. Nothing really. She's just too cute. And I'm sure many fans will want her to be with Hiromi. The whole romance thing, of course, is never gonna happen because she's a demon and a cobra, and Hiromi is a human being with with the health of an old man. Yeah, Lovey, she's just Lovey. There's nothing more to be said, unless if there's something with character development towards Lovey, write in the comments below. I could never forget that it was Lovey who just wrecked the whole plan at the last episode. She just exposes herself accidentally, and then Ikki just stares at the tail and like, okay, I see what is going on, but it didn't really affect much. Like, Ikki could have just walked away, but he didn't. But, Lovey is Lovey. What can you do? She has become, I think, the Happy Spa mascot since Vice is gone. So who's going to be the mascot now? Lovey. Why not? And also, before I move on, there's a scene that I was laughing, like, not so hard, but I was really laughing, was when Vice went inside Sakura's soul or mind, whatever, and went inside Lovey's room, and you see Lovey listening to hard rock, and just I don't want to talk to Sakura, and blah blah blah, and Vice is like, why not, and wants to get some answers, but before he ever gets those answers, Lovey just throws him out. Also, she attempts to trash Vice when the opportunity came, just trashes him, taunting him, which is funny. Yeah, there's nothing more to be said about her. Yeah, so let's move on, shall we? Then you have Papa-san, aka Genta, and at the beginning, he was portrayed as a goofball. He was the comedy side. However, it was later on, it was discovered that he was a Kamen Rider himself. Um, and he had no heart because when George examined him, no, it wasn't George. It was the one of the doctors from Phoenix who examined him, and George kind of read his file and discovered that he had no heart. And when Vale possessed him, his heart returned, and he was possessed. He was Kamen Rider Vale once again. He was about to kill his kids, and luckily he had enough strength to fight back and get rid of Vale, at least for the moment. And later it was discovered that Genta had a very hard life because he's been through a lot. Because he met Dr. Karizaki and he was at the point of death, and the doctor decided to transfer gifts cells into him in order to save his life, which later gave birth to Vale, and together they end up destroying failed experiments, and he was under the control of the military. He was just in control, like locked up and then released when you know shit happens, and then gets locked up again. He just can't catch a break until he met the future Mama-san. She gave him a reason to live. They escape due to the help of Dr. Karizaki. Also, Vale just he was pissed off because he assumed that he is leaving him for this girl, and he ended up getting trapped inside the demon driver. And Genta lost his memory of what happened. They changed his face, gave him a new name, and they just wanted to start over and give Genta a new life, a reason to live. And they had a family. They encountered this abandoned place. They turned it into a spa. Everything went hunky-dory until Vale found Genta. They had this talk, and was the Vale was the cause of the fire, and he vowed to Genta that I will destroy everything you hold dear, because Vale was rejected. He felt betrayed, and I'm sure Genta was like, I mean, you're a demon, you just want to destroy things. As much as I wanted you to be a part of my life, you're so unpredictable. It's just, you are you, I guess. And then Vale left. And of course, Genta, I think, had no memory of that up until he got possessed by Vale and all that. And then afterwards he was out of commission. He went into hiding because Vale was after him. As much as he wants to fight and just deal with his problems, he knows that he can't. He's up there in age, and he was reluctant to let his children deal with Vale because Vale is his problem, until he had enough strength to be able to confront Vale, but he needed to become a rider again in order to fight him, because there's no way in his condition, in human form, he wouldn't last. So he went to Dr. Karizaki and just, hey, I need to deal with Vale, and can you give me the power to do that? And he did. He began become Deathstream. he defeated Veil, not only for himself, but for his middle child, because he saw that he was dealing with his demons himself, and the only way to reach out to him is to have Daiji witness the fight between him and Veil. And he came to terms with Veil, like, I think in his way, I think he apologized to Veil, I guess, for, just leaving him behind. And the person you seek revenge upon, he's dead. I'm Genta now. And, that awesome scene between those two, it was really good. Like, the beginning of the fight towards, having the final talk between the two and just make peace with each other, that was pretty awesome. And then afterwards, that was it. That was the end of Genta. I mean, he was a good father. Even with his memories, he still kept that comedic side to him. And he is a little bit more serious than he was in the beginning, now that his memories has returned. And, but other than that, I think that's it. I mean, the fight with Veil was pretty awesome. The last conversation he had with Veil was pretty good. The suit is awesome. I have to say that it's one of the best out of all the suits in Revice. It's one of the best. I think that's it. That's it for Papa-san. And then leading to Mama-san, I mean, there's nothing much to Mama-san. Mama-san was being a mom, being there and just help her kids, if she sees them, they need some guidance, she will always be there. Especially when, their father is at the hospital recuperating after being possessed by Veil again. And, she had to be there because, who else? Like, there was nobody else. Mr. Boo? No. No. I was annoyed at the earlier episodes of Revice where she was at the hospital for most of the episodes, and I'm like, when is Mama-san getting released? She wasn't that hurt. Like, she would have been released like on the same day or at least the next day. She stayed at the hospital for more than maybe 5 episodes, and I'm like, damn, what kind of serious injury did you get from that demon? Yeah, I mean, and also with Mama-san being reluctant to have her kids fighting these supernatural monsters, she'd be like, that's it. You're not henshiming anything, Give me your drivers. You're not fighting, especially towards Sakura. But ultimately, after what she saw, she trusted her kids, and she just gave them her blessing. And Papa-san, well, he wasn't that reluctant. I think he trusted his kids enough that he's like, they're gonna be okay, Mama-san, don't worry. But Mama-san was being a mom, and there was moments where these family moments that you're gonna like be like, oh, or just shed a tear a little bit here and there, especially when their father was gone and in hiding, and the kids want their father back, and their mom's like, I know you want your dad to return. I know he will return, don't worry. So I think their mom is their safety net. She was there if her kids need help, and yeah, she was a good mom. Next on the list is Hiromi, our friendly neighborhood Hiromi, Green Arrow, and Hawkeye. Yeah, I mean, he's I have to say though, Hiromi, in my opinion, is one of the at least best well-written characters in the show and the most relatable. In the beginning, Hiromi was appeared to be a douchebag, self-entitled, and when he was demoted, he was very angry, pissed off, and people assumed that Hiromi will turn to the dark side, join the cult, and but it wasn't that way. It was appeared that way, but Kagero, stole his security card, took the V stamps, and then when the whole thing about this ambush, if you remember, Hiromi was one leading the charge, and then Kagero appeared and beats him up, and it was he was no longer a suspect. They targeted Daiji, but we all know Daiji wasn't in control. And from that point, Hiromi was given the demon driver because he wanted to stop Daiji, and then he became demons, which again with the suit it needs some work. And then we had that catchphrase, "I will give up my life," and then you add the rest. The fight with him and Kagero was pretty good. And then Hiromi almost getting kidnapped by his mentor, the commander, but to discover the truth that the commander died right before episode 1 must have been very heartbreaking. And he was on a mission to get revenge. Well, not really get revenge, but he just wanted to get the chameleon, just to give the commander peace, because he idolized him. Because let me give you a brief backstory. When he was little, he was bullied. When he saw a couple of his classmates getting bullied, he was the one who tried to make the save. As he got older, he and a couple of friends wanted to join Phoenix. He was bad during the training, while his other friends were succeeding rather quickly. He wanted to pack it in. The commander stopped him, gave him some wisdom, some pep talk. He stayed, and he became one of the top commanders in Phoenix at that time. And to know the truth must have been very devastating. And then he had to take over as commander, because I'm not sure if Akashi was already established or he just didn't want the job, at least not yet. And then another bump, that George knew that the demon driver was giving him like a lot of crap, because if you remember, when you become demons, at least during that time, it is almost as if it has some time limit before it got malfunction. And of course Hiromi confronted George, like, what the hell is going on, can you fix it? And then the truth came out that there's a demon in there, and it was sucking off his life force. He has a health of an 80-year-old, and if he keeps up transforming, he's gonna die. And he made that final transformation confronting a demon, and then he gave his letter of resignation and fork over his driver. And then George was mocking him, remember? And just I wish Hiromi would have decked him on that time, but no, it did not happen. And then, if I remember correctly, the dead man, like, I think invaded the base, which causes the base to just malfunction, and just it was going down. So Hiromi tried to like take the ship and land it safely somewhere around the mountains, remember? And then Hiromi had this final talk with Daiji, take care of Phoenix, you have my some kind of blessing, whatever. Is he was just saying goodbye because he knew he was gonna go out, and he did. I mean, Oteka, stole the driver, and he went flying. He just fell, off a cliff, and I didn't assume that he was gonna die because Hiromi has become one of the most beloved characters on the show. So it was stupid for the writers. I mean, yeah, for the writers to write him off. But in Kamen Rider, you don't stay dead for long, And in this case, Hiromi was a popular character. He was found, I believe, and he stayed at his mom's house, I believe, but supposedly he had amnesia, which became stupid right after because, after the Dead Man Cult and after the final defeat of Oteka, there was that stupid filler episode, that recap episode where Ikki and I think George as well found Hiromi at his house, but he had amnesia. So George's idea was to create a DVD, and it's based on the life and career of Hiromi, and also he added the whole exercise thing, which it was very goofy and just reminds me of Kiva, the Kiva special, the exercise. But it was just so stupid because when he returned, he confessed to Ikki that he never had amnesia. He was just playing that he had amnesia. And then he came back to help Daiji find his way, and then he transformed into demons one final time to just make Daiji understand and give him that pep talk, and he had, and then he became Hawkeye / Green Arrow Hiromi, because apparently bullets don't work. Bow and arrow does. And it was like, where's the logic in that? Because you have the weak hand with their guns shooting demons and it didn't work, and then you have Hiromi with nothing more than a bow and arrow and just shoots demons and ends up killing them. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And then Hiromi, made amends with George. I mean, the best scene of that episode where they first met after his supposed death. George, apologizes to Hiromi that, I'm sorry that, about the whole demon driver thing, and I didn't tell you earlier. I hope you forgive me. I understand that you won't forgive me, but at least you know now that, I apologize and, all that. And then he takes the briefcase because remember he was making the prototype Kamen Rider to help defend the civilians, because Ikki, Vice, and the other writers they can't be everywhere at once. And Hiromi takes the briefcase, and that awesome moment where he just lifts his arms up like the Undertaker and just went like that as he was walking away, and George took it as, yeah, I forgive you, and he bows, and just to me that was a cool scene in my opinion. So now Hiromi is friends, his bestie with George, and fighting how to pronounce a certain dessert right, the Stewie and Bryant moment right there. And then you have him helping Daiji with the Bluebird project. Yeah, and I can't say anything wrong about Hiromi. He has been through a lot as well. Losing his friends to the Dead Man cult, losing his commander, being betrayed by someone who he thought was his friend and colleague, being, presumed dead, and to come back to someone that sees himself as a mentor, and maybe Hiromi did saw himself in Daiji, where he was in the same boat, and he openly admitted that I was the same as you in the beginning, and let me help you deal with it, and I mean, Hiromi is one of those people who you want to have on your team. And if I were to create my all-star elite writer team, I'm most definitely gonna add Hiromi in there, just as long as he doesn't wear that coat. I hate that coat with a passion. It doesn't look right on him. Like, get something else. For real. And of course, Hiromi has his funny moments as well. I mean, the actor who plays Hiromi, he's a gem. He's quite a gem, and he will go far if he will continue on being an actor and all that stuff. Other than that, I mean, that's it. I have no gripes with Hiromi. And then we have the controversial George Karizaki. And the reason that I said that is because in the beginning, I wanted to like him, but due to his poor choices, I was like, no, man, I want to like you, but I don't like you due to your poor judgment and decisions. Like, he has done a lot of shady stuff, especially towards the people that he claimed to respect and love. And also what made it so difficult too is that George was one of us. He was, he was the one who loved Kamen Rider so much that he based his, the designs from past writers and put them in his V stamps. Hence why we've seen like a lot of references to past writers, with the Eagle, with Double, the Gorilla, with I think it was Forze, I believe it was. Then you have, I think it was either the fox or something. I forgot what animal it was, but it was related to X-Aid, and just it was, and also with demons, with Meteor. What else? I mean, I forgot what the others were, have reference to, but you get the gist of it since you already seen the show. And that's how much he loved Kamen Rider. To me, George was one of us. And that was the main reason why it's like, we like you. However, what you did to Hiromi, what you did to Daiji, what you told Ikki and Revice, that there were nothing more than guinea pigs to his experiments. I mean, what can you say? What can you say to that? In the beginning, he was, not crazy, but he was like out of the ordinary. He gets really excited if his V stamp worked, because you see him get all excited when Ikki used one of his V stamps, because in every episode, George delivers a V stamp to Ikki to test it out, and once it works, he gets all super excited. And then, we lead to the whole Kagero situation. I can never forget that flashback where Kagero pretty much beat up all of Hiromi's Phoenix squad, and I can't help but remember that George was sitting on a barrel, and he was talking about something, and he just gave a driver and a V stamp, which was the Bat V stamp, and of course Kamen Rider Evil was born. To this day, I don't remember if he knew that he was possessed or he assumed it was Daiji. I don't know, but he just gave it to him anyway, and Kagero nearly killed Ikki, And then leading up to the demon driver, where he knew about the side effects. I don't remember if he knew about the demon inside of the driver, meaning Veil. If he knew about Veil, I don't think he knew about Veil specifically, but he knew that there was a demon in there, and he let Hiromi use that driver. And because of that, every time he transformed, more of his health gets deteriorated to the point where he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, like, you cannot transform anymore because you have a health, like, your health is like isn't like aligned towards your age. He looks like maybe in his early mid-20s, but then the doctor tells him that you have the health of an 80-year-old, like you're an old man. And if he transforms again, it could possibly be the end of you. And when Hiromi confronted George, look what, like, you saw what happened if you remember. George was like all cocky. He was, making fun of his catchphrase. And he knew about Hiromi's situation, about the driver, and he didn't say anything or warn him. Nothing. And that's the moment that I wish Hiromi would have just decked him. But he didn't do it. He did not do it. And because of that, Vice was like, aside from being treated badly, but it's Vice, I really don't care much about Vice getting beat up by George, to be honest. However, Vice was pretty much one of us at that point where we don't trust George. I believe he's a snake. He did all of that, and plus told Vice and Ikki that they were guinea pigs. And of course, I'm sure Ikki, and I think more specifically Vice, was like, you know what, let's quit. Let's just leave. But Ikki, again, I know I'm repeating this, but this is my show. Ikki pretty much told Vice and all of us who have doubts about George is that, okay, I understand, but please trust me. Please put your trust in me. And that was it. Case closed. And then, you had, the Demek cult being dissolved, at least for the moment. And then George was working on his newer V stamps with the Holy Wing, and also Ikki's ultimate form, which me personally, his ultimate form looks kind of ugly. It was too much, in my opinion. Um, George, saying to, I think, one of his co-workers, whatever, about the holy wing, that it doesn't work properly, but it needs like a sacrifice in order for it to work. And then after Oroteka, stole the demon driver, kidnapped George, and Hiromi getting blasted away, and then leading towards the final battle with Oteka and Give's coffin. He was experimenting on the Give coffin, and he wasn't doing. If I remember, he was experimenting on it, but I don't really remember anything after that, because again, it's been a whole year. I don't remember almost anything that happened before until towards the end, so please forgive me on that. Let me remember. Okay, so Oroteka and Give were in the woods somewhere, and George had the perfect opportunity to become a Kamen Rider. He used the Demon V stamp, which at that time I believe Veil was already gone. So Veil was gone, and Ikki, Daiji, and Sakura had their hands full with Give and Oroteka, and also at that time the upper level demons, because remember, Oroteka was changing people with the Give V stamp, and look what happened there. So George came in and transformed to demons, and guess what? He was the best demons out there. I mean, if I had to pick which user was the best qualified to become Kamen Rider Demons, honestly, give it to George. Give it to George. He was having fun. He was being, like, to me, if he were Spider-Man, he will be it. He will be casted as Spider-Man. To me, he was like Kamen Rider Spider-Man, the way he just talked in English a little bit and just having fun. Like he was living the dream, And I'm sure after being a writer for that brief period of time, he became, you could say, Cam from Ninja Storm. For those who don't know, Cam was the guy he was the tech guy. He was the one who created the Zords. He was the one who created the weapons for the Rangers. But all the while, he wanted to be out there being a ranger and help his friends. And his father was like, no, you can't. And until, the perfect opportunity happened, he became a ranger, and you see him just having fun and just be happy. I mean, George for me was Cam. He was Cam. But unlike Cam, George, unfortunately, at that time, afterwards, he never became a writer again due to injury during the Gift Wars. And he gave the driver to Hikaru, and look what happened there. And then George's father appears. I know I'm going ahead, I'm like mixed up, but whatever, right? Then George's father, Dr. Karizaki, re-entered his life. He's pissed off because he left him and his mother behind with no explanation whatsoever. And it took time to build that bridge again, to build that trust. However, that came crashing down the moment Dr. Karizaki told everybody that I made a terrible sin. I transferred my demon into George when he was a child. And when George heard this, he was devastated. He was very devastated. And he didn't want to talk to him. And remember, Dr. Karizaki at that time was not long to live. And he was on his deathbed. And Dr. Karizaki was asking for George to come in and so they can talk one last time to, get, just to plead forgiveness. But George was angry. He was sad. He had a lot of mixed feelings. Hana came in and just tries to persuade him to visit his dad one last time because he doesn't have much time, but George just ignored it. And at the end, he went to visit him. He was already gone. And that was the breaking point. Because after Gibbs' defeat, George was a wreck. He created the Juga driver, and the reason he created that is to prove once and for all that I am superior. I'm no longer in my father's shadow. I'm gonna destroy everything that reminds me of him. And I'm sure off screen he must have destroyed the demon that came out from the shadows, if you remember. And then after that, he was going after Ikki and his friends because they have the V stamps and the drivers. And the one thing that I was really confused on, I assumed that George was the one who created the rider system, not Dr. Karizaki. So I was a little bit confused, but nonetheless, he wanted to destroy the rider system, anything that just reminds him of his dad, and just end his pain. And the reason why he broke down, went into madness, is because he assumed that his father did not love him whatsoever. He was using him, and that's why he planted that demon inside him, just because, I don't know, he wanted to control him. What else? Just ultimately, he assumed that he did not love him. And it was proven wrong, because remember, Hiromi and Ikki discovered that secret room, and that secret room was George's old room, full of his achievements, the pictures of his family, him being a little boy, and the drawings that he drew alongside with his dad. And what I mentioned in my review, that was a reference towards Ryuki. That was a reference to Ryuki. And when George was defeated, Hiromi went over to him, gave him the drawings, and that's when we had that gut-wrenching scene where he is crying and realized that his dad really indeed loved him. The V stamps that he helped create were, at least for the animals he chose, was based on George's drawings. And that and to see him crying and just I wish I had more time. I wish, you could be here and telling me you love me. Why did you leave me? Why you keep hurting me? It just, it was very tough to watch, It was very tough to watch. And then towards the very end, he is better now. He is reconciled with Hiromi. him and um, him and just those two were just fighting over how to pronounce the desserts. And he went to prison, with him. And George talked to Oroteka, and apparently he's going to get released under his care. We don't know the reason why George had visited him for the past few months. We don't know. And he helped, Ikki with his memories, with, Vice's master plan, because he owes Ikki that much, because Ikki was the one who knocked some sense into George, even when Ikki knew that it might cost him the memories of Sakura and Daiji, but he did it anyway, and he said that if you need anything, I'm there, I owe you one for this, and I do apologize for what I did. George has been through the ringer, and I think I mentioned this earlier, but I said it again. I will say it again. I thought that, based on his attitude at that time and him wanting to create the ultimate Kamen Rider, I assumed that he's going to be the final boss. However, it wasn't the reasons that I thought it was. And ultimately, in my opinion, I don't think George was the final villain at all. Because he was a broken man. He was hurting. And he just wanted to destroy everything that just reminds him of his dad. He didn't want it to take over the world like Giff wanted, or just want to kill people. He just wanted to destroy the V stamps. He wanted to destroy the writer systems. That's why when Hiromi went to the grave, he discovered the broken drivers that were laying on Dr. Karizaki's grave. You kind of feel bad for George. And there was moments where I wish Ikki or somebody else were to just tap him on the shoulder and be like, hey, I can see that you're hurting. If you need anything, or just want to talk, or just have me listen, I'm there. But it didn't happen. Even if that person did offer, George would have just ignored it, because you saw him just broken and just his face all motionless, all angry, I guess. Vice was the one who reached out, but yeah. Also, before I move on, I also wanted to mention the stupid the stupid filler episode where George came into the spa and said that, yeah, we found Hiromi, he has amnesia, and he wants to create a DVD based on his life. I will say it again. That stupid episode was so stupid for a few reasons. One of them, George told his reasoning why he didn't tell Hiromi about the demon driver and Veil, and also about Kagero. I don't think he mentioned that, but regardless, he placed the blame on Akashi, and I'm like, dude, come on. I know it's the writers, but no, man. You need to take responsibility on that. Don't shift the blame to Akashi just because he's the main villain of that particular arc. Don't give me that crap. Don't give me that crap. I was really upset about that, because to me it's just, nah, you're shifting blame. That's what you're doing. I didn't like it, but I did enjoy George becoming demon so much. He just reminds me of Spider-Man, the animated series, a bit. And I wish he was a Kamen Rider a bit longer, or just at least temporary until Hiromi returned. But he did return, but he didn't return as a writer. And George never had the opportunity to become a writer until the very end. Then you have Dr. Karizaki. And the poor man, I mean, it's his own fault. He was the one who started it all. He fell into the devil's whispers as he was telling the story to the kids. And he was a scientist with great ambition. And he discovered something that was never meant to be discovered. And then Junpei, and which later becomes Genta, he was at the point of dying. And, Dr. Karizaki, whether he had a choice or not, made the decision to give cells into Junpei in order to save his life. And that's when the whole mess happened. Veil was created, and the story ends there. And when Dr. Karizaki at least tried to make amends, getting, Junpei and his future wife, to escape, to break free, he was the one who got seriously burned by Veil as he was trying to use the demon driver to capture Veil, and he got burned in the process. And in the future, you see him all in black with a face mask on because he was severely burned. And he was a man with a mission. He wants to make amends to the people that he has hurt, and more especially towards George. And he kept himself hidden for a long time because I believe there's a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons is to remain hidden because of the Dead Man cult, because he felt like if he revealed himself too soon, then all of this would have been in jeopardy, and they probably weren't ready. And another thing too, if he went to approach George, I guessing he was afraid to be received by him because, he is hurt, he's angry, and he wants answers as to why he left. And during the show, as it progressed, you see him, he recreate the Jan driver, because I forgot the name, but he helped fix the Jan driver, which was later given by Sakura. And of course George was shocked, like, wait a minute, that driver did not work. How is it working now? Until George kind of like discovered, like, piece by piece, like, who would have been the one, and it was his dad. And then, when he revealed himself to the Igarashi family, and then Genta, his main mission is to be forgiven, to right the wrongs of his mistakes. He felt that he was responsible for this whole thing. And, obviously he can't do it alone because he's up there in age and he's dying. He didn't have much time to live. And he did help by tricking Veil, by giving him the new black Veil, the Veil driver, or V stamp, whatever. And because it was the only way to, get Genta and veil fighting and all that. And then, Dr. Karizaki tried to make amends with its son, and there were progress, but then him confessing about his demon transfer and all these other bad things he has done in the past, just that bridge just collapsed immediately. And Dr. Karizaki is a tragic character because at the very end, on his deathbed, he has been begging for George to come back. He wanted to talk to him one last time in the hopes of him forgiving him, and just have the talk. But it was too late. He was already gone, which led George into this meltdown and just mad with grief moment. And it was really sad. And it's just, but he was a man that he wanted some redemption. He did help place Hannah on the right path. He did counsel a lot of people within the weekend. He was the one who created the weekend. He picked the 3 people who eventually become the weekend family. And it's just, you wish as the person watching, like, you want this man to have a happy ending, see them both together. And there were moments that George and Dr. Karizaki had their moments, especially after the Veil and Genta fight, and that was a cool moment. But after discovering, other things, that went down the toilet. And towards the very end, he tells everybody that please take care of Georgie for me and support him while I'm gone. Please. He was begging everybody at that time at the base, and then again on his deathbed. Please, please help guide Georgie. Please, please support him, and please care for him, because I am slipping away here. And the sad thing is, again, he never had that final moment with his son. Never. And he just died without, explaining himself and just saying I'm sorry to his son and I love you, But I guess in a strange way, the drawings he kept, the room he kept at that house, mind you, it was the old house that they were staying at. I think that's his way of telling George that, hey, I did love you. I did thought about you while I was gone. I kept these, to remind me that I have a son, because I love you. And that was a powerful thing. And the tragic part of his character, his story, is that he never had the opportunity to speak with his son one last time and just ask for forgiveness and to tell him, I love you. And that's the tragedy of Dr. Karizaki. And now I think this is going to be the last hero, my last character to lay my claws into, you might say. And I've been wanting to say this for a long time, especially at that very end of the episode. Hikaru. Poor Hikaru. I believe the actor got screwed. It was terrible writing. Maybe it's not terrible writing. There was no character development whatsoever. I mean, all we know about him and the weekend as a whole is that they were put together due to common cause. Papa Weekend lost his family to the cult. We don't know much about Mama Weekend. I assume the same thing happened to her. But we expected more on Hikaru's backstory as to why he looks like an 18-year-old, maybe early 20s, but why did Dr. Karizaki chose him to be a part of the weekend? We don't know that. And it would have been an excellent start, to create character development for Hikaru and then build up as the story went along. All we know about him is that, again, they were hand chosen by Dr. Karizaki, whose mission is to infiltrate the Happy Spa, be friends with the family, and then when the time is right, well, before that, spy on them, and then when the time is right, convince the children to join the weekend in the hopes of, helping them with their fight against Phoenix and against GIF. And that was it. We had Hikaru, being friends with the family, more specifically Sakura. They were in the same school, I believe. If not, they were in the same karate class, keeping an eye on her and give word to, Dr. Karizaki, progress and all that stuff. And then, when Sakura joined the weekend, I mean, when all was revealed, nothing was built upon it whatsoever once she joined the weekend. And then later on, when Vale was running amok, either Papa Weekend or Dr. Karizaki appointed Hikaru to become one of her bodyguards. And first of all, two reasons. One, Sakura doesn't need a bodyguard. She doesn't need it because she's a writer, and even without, the transforming and stuff, she can handle her own. She is taking how many years of karate? She can defend herself whether she's in writer form or not. And secondly, let's say a random demon, Vale or whoever, comes in and attacks Sakura. What would Hikaru do? He wasn't a writer at that time. So to me, him being a bodyguard was so stupid. And then when Akashi was beating the crap out of all those kids at the supposed setup, that went down the toilet, and the weekend was witnessing the whole thing, you saw Hikaru all in distress. He wanted to go over there and see if he can help. But, Papa Weekend is said that, no, you be in the way. You're not even a writer. You're going to get yourself hurt or worse. And of course, Hikaru was frustrated. So he ran and asked George, hey, do you have a spare driver? And of course, this is after, of course, the stupid plan of trying to catch Akashi. So again, during the time Hikaru was asking George about a spare driver, the kids again were getting beat up. And I'm talking about the debut. So George gave the demon driver to Hikaru. He runs, he transforms into over demons, saves everybody, and I will say it. I said this before, and I will say it again. There was nobody cared. I didn't care. And when I went on social media to see the responses of Hikaru being over demons, it wasn't good. It was more like, why Hikaru? Why didn't you just give it to Takami? I mean, that person who wrote that had a good point. Why Hikaru? Like, picture this. Let's say the same scene happened, but in a ring, a wrestling ring, right? Demons are like attacking Daiji, Vice, Ikki, and Sakura, right? Hitting them with steel chairs, hitting them with sledgehammers, the works. Then you hear a theme song, right? Then you see Hikaru with maybe like a steel chair in hand, maybe a sledgehammer at the other, and he runs across the stage to go to the ring and just get some hits here and there on the demons and save the heroes, right? You expect to hear cheers, but in this case, there was no crowd reaction whatsoever. None. That was Hikaru. There was no crowd reaction whatsoever. And what made matters worse, the writers, creative, tried to give some sort of sympathy towards Hikaru when they decided to kill off Mama and Papa Weekend. Because remember that scene where Mama Weekend was holding off the demons with a couple of Weekend soldiers, and Hikaru went in and tried to hold the demons off, but Papa Weekend just saw this was a lost cause, so he made the tough choice to tell Hikaru to retreat, say, like, rescue civilians along the way, but I want you guys to retreat. And of course Hikaru just, no, I cannot leave my mom here. I have to go save her. And Papa Weekend was like, no, you have to obey my order. You have to retreat right now. He was reluctant, but he did it anyways. And as he was retreating, he just saw his, quote unquote mother just shooting at these demons to the point where they were killing her. She was dead on the ground. And then Hikaru, had a verbal attack on his quote unquote dad. And at that point, I was defending Papa Weekend, because when you're in war and you're in a tough situation like that, you have to make a tough choice to retreat, because the goal is to come in and return the same way you came in or you came out, with your soldiers alive. If they're civilians, they're your top priority to save them. I believe he had no choice but Hikaru was casting blame on him. And then, the invasion with Daiji Skywalker and the Foot Demons, and then Akashi went in right after, and then Papa Weekend just had a final showdown between the two, and Hikaru wanted to fight Akashi, but again, Papa Weekend said, no. You go back to the shelter, save as many civilians in there, and get out of here. Just get out of here. And he did, of course. And then again, Papa Weekend dies not until we have this revelation that he indeed had his own family. And in his final words, he loved Hikaru, that he's gonna be the one who's gonna put the beacon of light, whatever, like the hope, and stuff. And then he died. The weird part is that Hikaru had a flashback during that moment, which, like, Hikaru, you weren't even there. So how did you remember what your quote unquote dad told Akashi? Anyways, Hikaru was training because he wanted to face Akashi alone, and he managed to defeat Akashi, not without the help of Sakura and, of course, Ikki and Revice. Because remember, he was placing V-stamp after V-stamp after V-stamp after V-stamp until he kind of used all the V-stamps that he had, and he just attacked Akashi. Not at the point of death, obviously. He didn't went boom, which in my opinion, you should have left Hikaru kill Akashi at that point. I understand why you want to leave it to Daiji, I guess, but I believe that was Hikaru's moment, but it was taken away. Even worse, it went down flat. And then after the whole Akashi thing, where did he landed? At the hospital. And no one ever mentions Hikaru until the episode after, where Takami went in and visited him. And guess what happened there? Hikaru gave the demon driver to Takami. And to make matters, well, I don't know if it's even worse, but when he was better, and after everything was over and done with, he went back to the weekend base, and he was starting to pack things up. And when Hiromi and Ikki were trying to find a way to defeat George without Ikki transforming and then discovering that picture. So all three of them, well, four, Vice, I forget. They went upstairs because the picture was similar to, the upstairs room, and discovered that, hey, that mirror wasn't supposed to be there. There was no mirror in this picture, and yet there's a mirror right now. And discovered that, hey, it's a secret. It could be a secret doorway, whatever. And the last time we ever saw Hikaru was that he mentioned, okay, I will get some tools downstairs, and that's it. He never went upstairs, because remember, Hiromi and Ikki discovered the secret door due to Vice's clumsiness. He never went back up. And then in the last episode, he was not involved in the meeting with Vice. Because in the flashback, if you remember in the last episode, Vice met with everybody who was involved in Ikki's life, his family, his close friends, and yet there was no Hikaru. He wasn't even present in that spa. And he wasn't even there, in hiding with the rest. He wasn't even there even to witness Ikki's and Vice's final fight. He wasn't even there. What does that tell you? And of course, you're gonna tell me, well, Daehak, I mean, he came back after like several months. Yeah, but that was like several months later. And speaking of which, Hikaru, we don't know much about him after those few months. All that, I mean, except that, well, he's adjusting to normal life. We don't even know if he was adopted or he's living independently. Nothing. And if you were planning to create a love interest with Sakura, couldn't he just muster the courage and ask her out on a date? That didn't happen whatsoever. And again, coming back to this question, like, what's up? I mean, after him becoming a Kamen rider to, killing off his quote-unquote parents, to him being out of commission, it's just, I don't know. I believe the writers had nothing, I believe the writers had nothing for Hikaru. If they had nothing for Hikaru, why did you give him the opportunity to become a Kamen rider? You should have gave it to Takumi in the first place. And I felt bad, and this is just rumors. This is all alleged. But there was rumors that the actor's agency went to Toei, or the people who were in charge of Revice, I don't know, went in there and told them, hey, we want our client to become a Kamen rider. And of course, the rest is history if it were true. But however, it's just Hikaru, there was no character development. And if the writers indeed wanted Hikaru to be worth something, I wish they could have just built something along the way through the arcs, which would have led to a successful writer debut. And if it were successful, then towards the very end, then he wouldn't land himself in the hospital. I think he would have been more involved instead of packing boxes, and actually be present at that meeting and be present in that audience, witnessing Ikki and Vice fighting for one last time. But him not being there, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Either the writers had nothing for him, or they just didn't care anymore. I don't know, guys. If you have anything in regards to Hikaru, please write in the comments below if you share the same feelings. Because I feel that the writers did, at least the character dirty. Did the actor dirty. This is just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think about what I said, but I feel that it's just did him dirty, in my opinion. And I probably will end end this with this. I believe that somewhere down the line that this kid will get his second chance. It may not be in Kamen Rider, it could be in Sentai, or hell, it could be in a Ultraman season, which I don't watch. But either way, either Ultraman, Sentai, or Kamen Rider, I believe he will get a second chance. He will become a writer, and hopefully he will get a character that is well written and make us care. Because I'm sorry, the way they wrote Hikaru and did not build on his character and his story, it's the reason why nobody cared when he transformed into over demons. Is the reason why the whole sympathy thing of creative killing off his parents went flat. Because to me it felt like they're trying to force us to care about Hikaru, but either it did nothing or just made matters worse. And the whole battle with Akashi, that was a letdown. I wished Hikaru would have just killed him right there. But then he ended up at the hospital due to, the overuse of the V-stamps. And no one mentioned him after one episode. And then it took it took Takumi to go visit him. And that scene to give him the demon driver because he is injured. And then he comes back from the hospital and just starts packing things up, only to not show up during that meeting and then just pop back after a few months later. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm just saying this. I'm trying to, can you help me make sense? What were the writers thinking? Yeah, I'm asking the writers, if I were to tell, if the writers were here face to face, I'll be like, dude, what happened to Hikaru? What was your plan? Because you didn't have anything for this poor kid whatsoever. But, however, I will end it with this, which, by the way, I don't think I have anything else about Hikaru, because, again, there was nothing to him, and he had the perfect opportunity to ask Sakura on a date on that final episode, but it didn't happen, and it didn't happen earlier on. They could, if they wanted Hikaru and Sakura at least become a love interest, they could have just planted the seeds in the early stages into the middle and see how it progressed, but it didn't happen. I will end it with this. I will say this again. This kid, I strongly believe he's going to get a second chance. And again, whatever Takusatsu show is going to be planted on, he will do great. I hope that the character he's casted in has, how you say it, the writers will do well by that character and be treated better and just get a warm reaction and cheers and all that stuff. Because, like I said, when he came running with the demon driver in hand and when he transformed, if that was in a wrestling arena, there will be no crowd reaction whatsoever. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Alright guys, I'm not going to do any more characters because I decided this is going to be a two-parter. This one is for the heroes, and my part 2 is going to be for the villains, and then my overall thoughts and opinions of Kamen Rider Revice as a whole. So thank you so much for sticking around, and I do apologize for the video for being super long, but it needed to be, it's just there were things that were needed to be said. And yes, I repeated myself, but it's my show. So thank you for sticking around this long, and I hope to see you at part 2 for my villains and my overall thoughts of Kamen Rider Revice. Please give a like if you like it, and please subscribe, and also please do comment on on any character if I missed anything in regards to the characters, or you have opinions on the characters, anything at all. Just write on the comments below. Let us be interactive. I want to get your thoughts of what you think about each and every character and all that stuff. I need to know, guys, as for one writer fan to another. Alright, guys, I'll see you all on the other side of Oblivion. Thank you so much, and Johnny!